Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time, wherever you're at in the cosmos, in this never-ending nor beginning now moment. I'm Rocken Larry Locken with Pleiadian Express Productions, Pleiadian Talk. I'd like to welcome back a special guest that we've had on before, just the other night and a time before as well. A very informative young lady with lots of wisdom. She's heading up the World Ascension Conference, and you can check that out at worldascensionconference.com, as well as they have a Facebook, page on Facebook. We're going to be speaking tonight, though, a little bit about discernment on the etheric levels, vibrations, the matrix, and otherworldly entities, and how to know what you're dealing with and how to deal with them. Lindsey, welcome back, girl. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm doing amazing. Actually, I had to walk inside of the house before we went live and put on some bergamot, like natural essential oils to fight the mosquitoes. I don't know how they are over there on your end, but man, on the coast, North Carolina, gets a little humid occasionally, and sometimes they might carry you off like into space. So.
Well, clear over at the other side of the country here on the west coast here in Oregon, right? Actually, I'm overlooking the Pacific Ocean right now. With the mosquitoes, it depends. Some years they're bad, some years they're not. If you go more inland a little bit, they tend to eat you up a little bit more. But with the weather changing, there's, the last 4 or 5 years here have just been crazy weather-wise. So it's
right.
really hard to say from one day to the other. But when we were talking a little bit ago, and you had this idea, to come on and talk about it, and this is something that I think is very important, and I'm really glad that I have you on tonight because you're very great at articulating your point. And I just kind of like to hear, just starting off from the top, what are your thoughts and experiences on discerning from these etheric levels? And actually, the big question always is, of course, is how do you know who you're channeling? How do you know what you're dealing with? The only thing that I can say is some lame cliche answer like go within. So I'd really, I'd like for you to kick it off and just start wherever you want with this.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I really appreciate that. For sure, what I want to say, not only through my experiences, but I've seen others, they set off, like we spoke on the last show, about how people experience their awakening. Sometimes it happens immediately, and it's like, boom, like they never believed in aliens, and all of a sudden a UFO appears in front of them. And then some go through a really slow process trying to figure it out, and they ask for ascension really quickly, or they ask, oh, I really want to be a channeler, I really want to be a clairvoyant. Because here's the deal, we all have the gifts. We all have it encoded in our DNA to be what you would call psychic. I mean, that's a stereotype. I don't like to label myself as that, even though I do intuitive healing sessions, life coaching, and channeling. What I just really want to say is there's so many levels right now going on with not only the etheric, the galactic universe, the cosmos, etc., the galactic beings, the earthly beings, the how do I say?
The government interfering with vibrations like that and picking up on people's wants, and you got to really be careful. Yeah.
Exactly, kind of like the Matrix, etc. Like the other night, we were on, and I was booted off 4 times, but immediately it came back on. We have to hold. I want to say, like I said, in the last on the last show, I said that like fear is not real. It's not. Danger, that might be real, but fear's not real. But fear can, if you lead into fear, it can incorporate danger. For example, if you're afraid of these Matrix, these Men in Black guys, which I actually saw someone post today on Facebook, I forgot who it was, a report of these Men in Black showing up at this person's house and etc. It was on some kind of alternate mainstream media. Or an alternative to mainstream media, not mainstream media. It showed up on a website. And we did speak about in my last interview about how I kind of knew that I had a mission with Laura Eisenhower when these men in black showed up behind my house, which I haven't shared with a lot of people. So viewers, listeners, if you really want to know more about that story, you can click on the last one, soul tips, protection tips for the soul during your ascension journey.
Hey,
So anyway,
I wanted to ask you though, real quick. You were speaking of like you get a lot of questions, right, about how people can be an intuitive or a channeler, or whether it's been contact.
exactly, yeah.
But
Thank you.
like
Yeah.
for me, it's kind of hard because I don't really have anything to offer except that it just happened for me. You know what I mean? I don't know about for you, but it just like it happened for me. So it's like, and I have heard people say that too. They would like to know how to be in contact or how to channel, and really it's just kind of it is going within again and putting that intention out there, I guess.
And I really want to say that it definitely is about going within. But as my soul sister Krista Risa, she actually channels the Orion Council, and she's going to be speaking in August with us at the World Ascension Conference. And she speaks about spiritual maturity, because I can tell you right now that I've been a channeler, or when I first got into channeling, I never ever put it out to anyone but myself. I simply wrote it down so I could check to make sure, is this a benevolent being? Because here's the deal. There are entities that will try to come disguised as something else, and then it becomes some kind of manipulative thing because we're putting our faith in it. So remember, listeners, viewers, remember that when you put your faith into anything, that you're kind of signing over an agreement. All right, so make sure it's positive, make sure it's benevolent, and make sure that it gives you free will. When you hear an entity come to you, whether you're practicing mediumship, clairvoyancy, intuitive healing, working with the heavenly archangels, make sure that voice is not speaking to you as, okay, do this, or this will be good,
As
or
an
this will be
authoritative figure,
you
right?
know.
Yeah, as an authoritative figure, because I've had so many people come to me and say, well, my guides have told me I shouldn't release this information, or they told me this or that. And it's like, well, I don't really resonate with that. And why would you want to have a group of guys that are doing that?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Sometimes you shouldn't release certain information because it's sacred to you, and it was given to you by an entity that says, hey, you should maybe hold this back. But on the other end of the spectrum, there are benevolent beings that that say, hey, release this information, and sometimes it can be your own insecurities that don't allow it to flow and channel. So there's such a fine line, and that's where I go back to using heavenly discernment. I know people say, oh, you don't have to put the word heavenly in front of it. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. Okay, when the Bible, or it's kind of like we grew up, with this Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So let's bring heaven to earth, the true heaven, the true etheric realm of heaven, with the heavenly archangels, Sophia, Sophia, heavenly archangel Michael. There's so many, so many factors here, and I have thought at one time that I was going with my gut, and that's and I've never missteered anyone because I've never predicted the future, because timelines are always shifting, and only you can create your future. I can tell you what's going to happen if you go this way, but
you give innate possibilities, right? You give innate possibilities on what can happen if you do this.
Because here's the thing, it's interesting you say 8 possibilities, because 8 possibilities, the number 8 is the sign for infinity. There are infinite possibilities.
I said innate possibilities, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Either way, that's synchronistic. So there are innate possibilities. There are infinite possibilities. Nothing's impossible. History has proven that over and over and over and over and over. So what I really want to delve into right now is okay. So, what I really want to say, for some people, it just comes naturally. For some people, it doesn't. But I really want to reiterate, using, like Krista Risa says, using that spiritual maturity, reading books, using that discernment, knowing who and what you're talking to, and not handing your free will over to something. Like you said, Larry. I mean, what are your views on that? About really like going within, but don't be mixed up within at the same time where you give your power over, because you can feel like it. I felt many times that certain things have resonated within me. Like certain human beings. Oh, well, they really love me, care about me. Little did I know. You know what I mean?
I think that what you can do is you can, like I said before, take what resonates with you, but then at the same time, when another issue comes up or you're told another thing or this or that, and it doesn't quite feel right, don't try to convince yourself that it's right because, that something else you resonated with it from that same source felt right, right? I mean, they could say 2 + 2 is 4 and you're like, okay, yeah. But if they told you to jump off a bridge, of course, well, that doesn't sound right either. Um, you know, you
Exactly.
just can take what resonates with you and go from there. Another way sometimes like that I would know early on that this stuff was legit, way before I even found Facebook, is that I would get a channeling from the Pleiadians, and then a week later or so I'd be on YouTube and like Alage would be talking about it, or Marianne Rada or Wendy Kennedy or somebody else would be, another Pleiadian established channeler at the time would be talking about it, and I'd be like, God damn shit, they must have been getting the same download at the same time I was then.
Right, exactly. But I had a very, very beautiful friend come to me the other day because I channel the Pleiadian Council of 9 and 11, and I offer a personal channeling up for recording through my Facebook page. You can find me Sacred Garden of Light, and I record it for everyone. And she said to me, she said, I don't, a lot of Pleiadian, she said, some of the Pleiadian channelings, I don't trust. And I said, honey, I agree with you. Some of them are downright creepy. And the only reason I say that is because I've seen channelings of the Pleiadians, and I'm not going to quote the names, the channelers. And there's only been a few
You can do that for me off air.
that just absolutely did not resonate. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah, why
you
don't you
know?
let me know who they are off air, because I'd like to look into that. I've only seen a couple before that had put out some stuff that I really, really didn't resonate with. But then I've seen a couple that I resonated with that have come out with some stuff now that I'm not really sure about. So we'll talk
Exactly.
about that off air because we don't
Yeah,
want to,
precisely. And I'm just going to give a small example. Um, you know, that's why I probably only channeled for maybe 5 to 10 people before, because the Council of 9 and the Council of 11, the true Council of 9/11, they will not communicate unless the receiver is ready to receive, and the Pleiadians are very strict about that. They're very highly evolved emotionally and spiritually, of course. It's said that the Pleiadians were trained by the heavenly angels. So, they're very benevolent. They're very they're not going to speak to anyone who's not ready to hear it or receive whatever they have to say. And that should be with all benevolent beings, or all benevolent entities. Like, nothing should ever force themselves upon each other. For example, I hear people all of a sudden like these Archangel Michael channelings. And I'm not saying that I've never seen one that hasn't resonated with me. But I will tell you, a few just energetically, I've just been like, no, like I don't feel like reading the whole thing, etc. Because you have to understand that it's kind of like every entity almost has like a counterpart in a certain way. They say that Heavenly Archangel Michael was a fallen angel. So this fallen angel could come to these people disguised as the not fallen angel. So be specific in your meditations, in your prayers, and use the words Heavenly Archangel Michael, Heavenly Archangel Raphael, Heavenly Archangel Raguel, Heavenly Archangel Uriel, Heavenly Archangel Shamuel, Heavenly Archangel Yophiel, Heavenly Archangel Christine, Heavenly Archangel Sophia, Heavenly Archangel, Metatron. We really have to be specific with our thoughts and our words.
Well, and a lot of times, like too, with my channelings, the Pleiadians is like always. My story is quite actually kind of amazing, although I don't talk about it much, but I have on other shows. But they're all mine. Are all collectives are always with me, but they don't force themselves upon you, and they're there like when you need some advice and things like that. I probably only had about 10 occasions where I got that pulse tone in my ear, and they were coming through to me with something, and it was something that was pretty important that they felt that I needed to be part of my awareness at the time. But typically, actually, I probably don't interact with them as much as I should, but it's just there, and I really don't have a lot of questions to really ask of them sometimes.
Well, yeah,
it's just how it is.
It's not that you shouldn't put that judgment upon yourself of I shouldn't I should be interacting with them more. They're with you all the time.
Exactly.
They probably what I'm feeling and sensing right now. They're hovering over your house every other day. Whether you know it or not.
True. Yes, they are.
So yeah, that comes with it. Just trusting, doing your research. Not only like physical research via the web, but emotional and intuitive research, like checking your pineal gland, checking your subconscious, checking your source. Because like I said, we all have free will. I've heard channelers say that angelic humans don't have free will. And I say, bullshit. Like, we do, that's something that God gives us, that the Heavenly Father issues us, and
yeah, I don't know how somebody could box it in like that and say that they don't.
Now I will say that it's harder for angelics to how do I put this, and like speak eloquently about it. Angelics have a harder time with free will because they almost feel like when it comes to unconditional love and accepting other people and entities or whatever, they feel like they should always hold space because that's our job as angelics. Like,
yeah,
so like the Magdalenes, etc., like I spoke about on the last show. It's we are the most beaten up race or beaten up souls out there, and what I want to say about that, you have people out there who are are earth souls. You have people who are angelic souls. You have people who are from the fourth ray of Gaia. You have people who are from the angelic dimension, but that doesn't mean that your soul is less equal to an angelic. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing I really want to reiterate with your soul origin and etc. Like where you come from as a starseed or this or that or whatever.
Right. And you can come from many places. You can have, like, say, for instance, a Pleiadian higher self, an Arcturian overself, an angelic soul above that. I mean, so these are all things to consider. It just doesn't have to get boxed into one
Precisely,
space.
because number one, we're all one, and if we can really accentuate that we're all one, that means it's like I see people get soul origin readings, and they're like, I'm from Sirius, I'm from the fourth ray of Gaia, and yes, this could be true, but they end up comparing themselves to angelics, like, oh, I wish I was an angelic, actually. It doesn't make an angelic's life any less easier to not be from Sirius and the fourth ray of Gaia. Do you know what I'm saying? It really doesn't. We're all equal. We're all here on this mission. I'll share my story as far as what I've experienced. I mean, my soul parent. You know, I was assigned from the Heavenly Father and Mother. I was assigned to like Sophia, Heavenly Archangel Sophia, and then I spent quite some time under her wing and a few other, many other heavenly archangels, and then I was placed down in Pleiades, which was my first life in the cosmos. So, and I won't go any further than that, but yes, angelics have the need, like even a more so of a sometimes more so of a pull to serve humanity. Not always, because like I said, it all depends on your awakening. When I found out, oh wait, I'm an angelic, like, so Heavenly Archangel Sophia is my soul parent. I was like, oh, it all makes sense now. It all makes sense why I was just unconditionally loving everyone around me, and I freaked them out because they didn't know unconditional love, you know.
Do you feel like that's something that you were born with versus, I mean, have you always felt that way, whereas other people around you may not have? So it's something that like was always with you?
Oh
Because I like
yeah,
what,
yeah. Like I never associated it, in my younger years, of course, because I was programmed by, this, Orthodox religion, etc. And then got involved with the late crowd and the, my clique, my best friends were always older and grew up on Lake Norman and had massive amounts of money and et cetera. And I have so much love for them. They shaped me into who I am. I mean, one of them was like their dad was a celebrity. He was a fishing celebrity. I mean, all that shaped my life, and I'm eternally grateful. Even though they've rejected me, I still love and hold space for them. You know. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, totally. I like what you said about your coming down to the Pleiades. That was your first incarnation, right, in this particular galaxy, coming down from the angelic realms. I really resonate with that a lot, and it kind of answers a lot for me too, because I
yeah,
felt like,
definitely,
yeah,
definitely very. And later on, I we can go into that deeper after we get off the air if you're interested. So.
yeah, definitely.
And I want to say to the viewers, I don't do this for many people, but if there's a serious case where you cannot afford any kind of session, if you simply message me, um, you know, I'll do my best to help.
Okay, sounds good. Hey, by the way, on a side note, if you got your Facebook up, I did send you a private message I'd like you to check out. But yeah, exactly. And did you feel like more of the connection with the angelic realms then it was like presented to you that your first incarnation in the cosmos was to the Pleiades, or did you have an attraction to the Pleiadians first and then move up from there? Because mine was more like to the Pleiadians first, and then I moved up through that to Arcturians and whatnot and things like that.
Well, first, I'll tell you how my process worked at first. Like I said, I was living with my grandparents, and I found David Wilcock through Christ consciousness, whatever. I didn't even type in consciousness, just watching some Christ stuff, or like listening to like what is the something like a Christian band, and then David Wilcock just popped up. And so that happened, and then I found Laura Eisenhower, my beautiful sister, and I'm so happy to be reunited with her again. And and then it went from me kind of just still trying to, like, really take in all of this and not feel guilty, like, am I going to go to hell, back in 2011, 2012, beginning of 2012. And then, one of my friends, he started, he was posting these Bashar videos, and I really started to resonate with it. And, I started waking up with, interestingly enough, I think we spoke about this on the last show, where I would wake up and my hands, my fingers would be have this like blue tint to them, or either a pink tint. Like it looked like I had drawn on them with some pen, you know, just weird appearings on my fingertips. And I actually started channeling Bashar, but I was just writing it down, you know, just trying to check myself and just to see, you know, just testing my channeling abilities, what have you. And I take this picture of my hands, and my friend Johnny actually he said, Lindsay, he said, you know that those markings are a sign of channeling. And I'm like, holy shit, you know. And I've always resonated with the Pleiadians, but it took about 6 more months until I moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, during the Venus transit, as it's my ruling planet. And I got down here, and during that time, the Pleiadian constellation was right above my room, like right there. It's like it didn't move. So that's when they started really speaking to me, the Pleiadians. But I didn't really find out, or I guess consciously figure out that I did they had been a Pleiadian soul, a starseed, etc. You know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, something I always ask people too is as far as the Pleiadians go, and I've almost to a T, every person I've ever talked to, they never, and for no rhyme or reason, they had never heard of the name Pleiadians until they were ready to. You know, I hadn't heard about it until some freak encounter. I heard the name mentioned on a talk show, and then that's right when, you know, my awakening ensued after that. But real quick, while we're kind of on the subject, I had a gentleman come into the room, and actually I mentioned him on the last show that we were doing, because he's another Pleiadian contactee out here in Oregon, Thomas Ray. And of course you had mentioned those people, the MIA or whatever, showing up at your house and hearing the doors click. And you know, he had a run-in with some people like that when he was younger too, as well as his stories are just absolutely amazing.
Awesome.
He's very
awesome.
scripted in scripture too. And Thomas Ray, if you're there, say hello to Lindsay and say hello to everybody. Thomas, are you there, brother?
Hello.
Hi, Thomas. I'm so honored to have you with us. This is totally synchronistic. I'm excited.
Good evening. All of a sudden here, I'm putting myself together right here.
You're fine?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine, bro. I was just mentioning how that, and you know, and then tons of stories you and I had talked about. Of course, one of them was that on a side note, you mentioned to me these dudes showing up when you were younger at your house in, you know, Central Oregon.
My mother was she worked for the Forest Service, and she had found her way through the John Day Painted Hills doing a survey of the botany of the ground, and she came across a darkened hole on the side of the blinded area, the Painted Hills area, in the sagebrush area. And she walked closer to it. As she did, she basically walked into a portal and was taken to the several different dimensions and showing several different things through her guide, Archangel Michael. And as that happened, myself, that were prior experiences that I had experienced with my guides as a young child, started as young as 7 years old, and also at time in the womb I already had guidance in the womb. With that, with the MIB, for say, we're going to talk about that. The scary thing is that when she was showing the things that she was showing, that I had explained to her, because as a child I told her I'd seen dinosaurs and got to fly on a pterodactyl. And she was kind of a crazy kid, imagination.
Thomas, I just want to interject right now.
Yes.
I actually just put a feed up on my Facebook featuring, this whole Mars thing, this whole Mars operation, and how this guy, I kind of found out who he was through a friend. Synchronistically, his name is Thomas Fillion. And he showed me, he told me who the guy was who was doing this, and there was actually a picture of a dinosaur. This guy, like, you know, and yeah, so I totally resonate with this, and it's that Mars underground operation that they, and what I suspect, what I'm really feeling right now is that you were a part of my lab, just like I was. So therefore, I really appreciate you sharing this story, because you're the only one besides, Laura Eisenhower, that I've actually spoken to with these Men in Black sort of instances. And, I'd never spoken to it. I've maybe told a handful of people, including Laura, and I just totally felt like coming out about it on the last show, So thank you.
Sure. Would you like me to finish what I was saying about the MIB, or are we wrapping that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Thomas. But I also wanted to point out too that Thomas and I were talking a long time ago, and we were talking about Mars, the subject you bring up, and the fact Thomas was like, you know what, it's kind of an illusion. Really, there's a lot of places on Mars with blue skies and green trees, and then I found that to kind of resonate with me. But go ahead, Thomas, on that. Yeah.
Okay. So, with that happening, sorry. Okay. So that evening happens, and I lived a great distance from the nearest town where she worked, and she had about an hour drive home. And that evening, I was on the driveway splitting wood for the fire, and I noticed a car, Capri, keep on driving down the highway that only maybe sees 5 cars a day, because I lived very far outside of town, about 68 miles out of a true town, and up the mountains, in the Blue Mountains. And point is, I find this car pulls into our driveway, and our driveway is a good 200 yards long to the first homestead, and it's making its way down the driveway very slowly, and I'm thinking, what the heck's this guy doing? This is kind of weird. And they have cattle bits all around our house, because we live on an open range. And so we have about an 8-foot fence all around the house. And these 2 big guys come out, and they're wearing the Men in Black. They're MIB, definitely. And they got the car. And before I know it, they're coming through my gate, and they went through my gate. They didn't open the gate. And we're talking a 3.5-inch, tube steel piping, steel cattle gate. That weighs probably 700, 800 pounds or so. And they just kind of melt right through it. And they come up to me, and they're not talking, but they're talking, through my mind. That's how I'd say it then. Of course, I know it's telepathy now, but then, they're telling me, what do I know, and who do I know, and what's going on. And I was not freaked out at all. I was, pretty much okay with it. And I just said I'd meet my archangel, and my archangel has shown me some dimensions and that I could go to, and my subconscious thought and be taken for a ride, and I'd be taken by my guides through Pleiades. I had guides that pick me up in their craft, and I have pictures, and I actually have a tattoo on my body of the craft I get picked up on. But the point is that long story short is that
Thomas,
they came.
With you. I'm totally with you. I understand. Yes.
Right. And so they just they said that I need to just make sure that I minded what I knew minded to myself. And I understood what they said. And they asked me where my mom was. Well, I thought that was kind of silly. They were asking me because they knew where she was at. But I told them to leave, and so they had left. And about 15 minutes later, my mom shows up, and she's just like not the same woman. She's kind of up in her own little world. And her husband's making dinner, doing his thing. And I come out, and the house is kind of weird vibration. And we're all sitting down and having dinner in the living room, and all of a sudden, the car we can see out the front of the window, the MIB car is going down our driveway. And before you know it, they're in our living room. And it's kind of like MIB style, like the movie. They kind of didn't show us a wand.
Yeah, Thomas, I totally know. Yeah, I totally know. I had this experience. So, yeah, go ahead.
So whatever it is, what you've experienced, so you have to keep it yourself. And so
exactly.
They left. When they left, my mom opened a can of worms, and she said, "Hey, guess what happened today, honey and kids?" And we're like, "What?" Okay, we lived out far on the high desert. Our nearest neighbor was 6 miles to the east and over 12 miles to the west. And the other side was the sides of the house were fields. There's no housing, just cow fields. So we're sitting there, and she's like, today when I was out on the woods and doing my surveying, I kind of walked into this cave and found myself in another place. And she explained how she was on Saturn, and explained how Saturn was a planet of karma, and karma gods were there. And as a primary female planet, there's only very few men. And explained to me that I was one of those children that I was a seed from Saturn. And because I'm kind of metrosexual myself. And so she explained how come I was a good kid the way I was. And because I grew up only having a mother. I didn't have a dad. So I had a different kind of rearing of sorts. I was taught how to cook and clean and chop wood at the same time, so it was...
Yeah, Thomas, I really, really appreciate you sharing that, and I'm gonna share. I know I shared it the last time, but I'm gonna share it again. I really feel like the viewers and listeners need to hear my story again as well, and you, Thomas, as well. Could you mute your mic for a sec? All right, thank you. So I'm gonna share this, and Thomas, when you want to come in when I'm done and whatever. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching Laura Eisenhower speak about the Mars operation, etc. And all of a sudden I hear this van pull up behind my grandparents' house, and my back is turned. Okay, but I see them in my mind's eye as a clairvoyant, intuitive, empath, etc. I see them in my mind's eye. I hear four the doors open. They get out. It's 11 o'clock at night. They've got sunglasses on. They start walking towards my window with the intent of interrogating or kidnapping me. And this heavenly angelic being appears beside of me, and she says, Lindsay, don't turn around. If you turn around, you will be fearful, and you will give them permission to infiltrate in a sort of way. So long story short, I was scared shitless, but yeah, I never turned around. And I could see them in my mind's eye that I didn't give in, and they turned around and they walked away. But the strangest part about it is as I heard them pull up and open all the doors and then shut the doors behind them and get out, when they drove away, or when they left, I saw them walking towards back towards the van because I didn't give in, and the strangest part about it, I never heard the doors close or slam. I never heard them open back up for them to get in. I just heard the van drive away. And it's interesting you say that you farm area, etc. My grandparents own 30 acres of land where the Mayans actually settled on the Catawba River when they fled after the, quote, Europeans, white man, tried to come in, because they did travel upwards. There's all kinds of there's all kinds of hieroglyphics, everywhere across the U.S. to say and prove that there was Mayan civilizations that migrated. Not own, because nothing in this world belongs to us. I have a piece of a Mayan birthing rock that I dug out of my grandparents' pond, made of azeztulite. And they say that azeztulite, and it's been analyzed by two geologists, and that it is in fact azeztulite, huge azeztulite on the land, everywhere. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and I think people, and I so appreciate you holding space for us and really just sharing your story. It's so important that people know about this whole Mars underground operation, and that's what we're discussing, how to discern and how to know which entities you're dealing with and how to not live in fear, because it's not real. Everything, essentially, we're living in a holographic universe. We're living in a holographic world. Humans are eminent and supersonic. We're manifestors. And we don't understand. I think a lot of humans don't understand, and I mean, I'm even still growing in this, is that we have the power to manifest anything. And that's why we've been, kept down for so long, under so many centuries, with this Babylonian magic money system and etc., all kinds of things. But yet people need to know, and it's interesting. I want to point out, that you went into a cave, and the Agarthians actually, I think, are with you. I don't know if you've had communication with them, because the Agarthians actually live in live underground. They're humanoid, and on their cloaks and on their clothing, they wear these Saturn emblems or medallions on their clothing. So I find that very interesting that you ended up in a cave, probably underground, like Stargate transportation, etc. So yeah.
Well, I don't know a whole other concept of that. There's actually, in every state of the Union, all 50 states, including Hawaii and Alaska, there are underground trams that exceed over 5,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, Antarctica. I mean,
Right.
even I spoke of, last time, the Denver, Colorado airport, the Mars Underground operation going there. They're actually doing it in Charlotte right now. They're masking it with like, oh, it's under construction. I mean, it's been like there's been construction going on in the Charlotte Douglas Airport for years and years and years and years and years, when they should have been done with it. It's just all a cover up for what's going on underground. They're trying to do, but it's like I said, we're not going to do any fear porn. They're not going to win. The light always triumphs over the darkness. They may have their agendas, but and yes, they have their agendas, and at the same time, we have our agendas, but it's all about what the agenda is about. Let's all just keep in focus the positivity and the dharma, that we're trying to bring back. The restoration into the universe.
So do you have a passage that you stick with, like, for say a scripture you meditate to, like, every morning to every evening or throughout the day by yourself?
No, actually I don't. I mean, not a specific one. I simply walk in spirit. I use heavenly discernment, and I mean,
Are you familiar with Reiki?
With what?
With Reiki healing? With Reiki healing?
Yes. I mean, I do Reiki. I send out Reiki. I'm an intuitive healer. I mean, there are so many things that go through my mind every day. I'm a cosmic alchemist. I'm a global alchemist. There's so many things that go on and on and on. And, like I said, I would really like to work with you. Like I said, when we go off air, as I said with Larry about the Pleiadians, etc., I will offer you a few sessions and etc. to really allow you to delve deeper into what happened.
Right, that'd be most excellent. I really look forward to having some of your ideas conjured up.
Well, it's not ideas. It's the truth. It comes to me, and it doesn't need validation. It doesn't need anything. The truth just is.
Correct. Most excellent.
Yeah. Thank you so much again, Thomas. I really appreciate you. Larry, do you have any more questions for me? Thomas, if you could mute your mic for a bit.
It's muted.
Okay. Larry? Larry? Did we lose Larry?
Oh, hello. Hey, Lindsay, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah. We're here.
Wow, that was weird. It was reflecting that I was talking, but nobody could apparently hear me. Yeah, I was just talking, going to touch on real quick, the Agarthan network. Of course, a lot of Pleiadians refer to the Agarthans as their Agarthan cousins, of course. They're from the underground. But this subject about Mars, you mentioned all the underground and stuff like that. Do you believe in the concept of the jump rooms to Mars? Do you think
yes.
Mars could have been simulated?
Yes. I mean, Hollywood presented it to us in the movie Jumpers. We've got to remember that, you know? I mean, it's like, that's the thing with Hollywood. They're telling us every day the things that are going on, you know, kind of like the House of Cards, etc. You know, it's like it's right in front of our faces. And if we continue to watch these things and not look into the spiritual symbolism, that's their way of keeping us enslaved, because they're like, oh, they believe, or oh, look, we're putting it in front of them, we're giving them the knowledge, and they're not looking into it. So technically, it is our fault if we don't look into it.
Yeah, it really is. They'll either get this concept of, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit, or at the same time, they may just look at that initial level of it and get all fear-based and be like, oh God, no, oh, that's those symbols are evil. And they don't dig deep to realize just how intricate it is and just how widespread it is on so many levels, and that it goes up a pyramid. And it's not just that, oh, that's an Illuminati symbol or that's a this or a that. It's, you know, people say that and go, that's part of the Illuminati, but they don't know anything more about it. You know, they just know that, hey, that's an Illuminati symbol because they were told it.
You know, and that comes with discernment. It's everywhere in Hollywood. Like, for example, I'll just give you an example. You know, when I, like last year, I would watch Orange is the New Black. I watched it with my boyfriend, you know, because that you know, that was like the only time we had to kind of spend time together and just relax or what have you. And we were on a different level back then. And, you know, he played it the other night. He began playing it the other night. And I literally, my soul and my spirit could not handle it. And I was like, he was like, babe, what's wrong? I was like, I don't know. The shit is way too intense. And I just like ran off to bed really quickly, like hiding from it, you know? And that's the thing, like Orange is the New Black. Like, here's the thing, we're all like, if you can't catch on, we're all imprisoned in some sort of way. Everything they're representing for years on the Orange is the New Black has been our self-imprisonment of our own identities, you know, if you really want to think about it, and literally not being able to love the darkness within, which keeps it suppressed. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with the viewers right here. You know, years and years ago, I was in a very abusive relationship. I'm not saying that I was the best person ever. I'm not saying he was the best person ever. But it was just a toxic relationship all around. Yet I'm grateful for it because it gave me a great initiation. Well, you know, at that time, he was an alcoholic, so I fell into alcoholism. You know, I fell into that. I leaned on that to kind of issue me through the day. So therefore, in turn, when things went awry between he and I, we had 2 children together. I started, you know, even when I left him, started even self-medicating with alcohol even more. I got 2 DUIs right on top of each other. I literally, this was back in 2009, and I wasn't convicted until 2012. So, you know, I actually served time in jail for my DUIs. I served 7 days in one county, and then I served 21 days in another county. And I know what it's like to feel that suppression, but at the same time, you know, spending that time in jail was the most gratifying and humbling experience that I've ever had. For example, I used to never eat candy, but when I was there, I would order Skittles just because of the colors. You know, people have no idea how lucky they are. There are those that get caught and those that don't get caught. I know so many people out there right now who are my clients and some who aren't, that, you know, have serious, you know, things with, oh, I might need a substance to get through the day, etc. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with drinking alcohol. Just do responsibly. Like, don't let the substance control you. You just control the substance. You see what I mean? When you consume anything. So, you know, so that's how it happened. And I literally, when I got out of jail in 2012, you know, I literally, it was like 4 a.m. in the morning, and it was during this, like, It was when these Mars, Jupiter, and Venus had aligned in a triangle, and I literally looked out the cop car window, being brought to the home jail because I was in an annex. I looked out and I looked at the moon, and these three planets aligned, and I just started pouring tears. People don't know how good they have it. They don't, and we so abuse our privileges and ourselves. And this is what I said earlier, as I hosted an interview with Ajna Nirvana, for World Ascension Conference earlier today. I said, you know, like we just don't know how good we have it sometimes. Like we just don't. We take so much for granted, and the other thing I said to her, we here at World Ascension, we don't put a mask over ourselves. We know that we effed up in the past to an extent, but those things just made us stronger. Like Ajna said, she said, the people without cars, the people without jobs, the light workers, we are the misfits, we are the black sheep, but we end up being the most sometimes powerful, in this movement.
No, exactly. And more too, as we're starting to realize it and come out of that, a feeling of like we're not quite adequate, or people around us may think are weird, but it seems like more and more as the power increases, more people are, maybe drawn to you to want advice or information, even maybe people that were skeptical.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I serve, and that's the thing. That was my initiation. The toxic relationships, the being blinded by this, white, okay, Lindsey, you're supposed to meet someone and it's supposed to be a white picket fence. You're supposed to have babies, get married, and create a life. No, 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 no.
Yeah, make dinner, watch Dancing with the Stars.
That's where the public school system has failed. That's where our government has failed. They've never taught us how to unconditionally love ourselves, and the church has not taught us that either. So we really need to get back to that. We really need to practice the teachings of Christ, of the true Christ, on unconditional love. And I see so many people loving those unconditionally when the ones that they are loving unconditionally don't reciprocate the same thing. And it's like, I've asked myself this question before. How could I have ever loved someone so much unconditionally, but then not love myself unconditionally? Not love myself the way I love this person. And that's what I think all the listeners really need to tune into as well. Love yourself just as much as you dedicate and love yourself and give your time to others.
No, I agree. And, Lindsey, it's great. I'm glad you brought that up because, my twin flame and I, we actually run a twin flame group, and we get so many questions of people asking, well, how can I find my twin flame? Why don't he love me? Why don't she love me? This or that. But they're totally looking without. And it's like,
because, Larry, I want to interject right now. And I'm just going to say this, like, in a certain essence, I essentially believe that, and this is just my opinion, nobody, this is just my opinion. Do your own research, people. Go with what feels right to you. I try not to claim the whole twin flame thing. I could with my partner right now,
yeah,
but I essentially believe the twin flame lies within yourself.
Yeah, it really does. And I was pushed to I didn't really ever want to cover that subject, right? Much less then I never knew I was going to meet my own. And I really still cringe at using that term because I hate saying anything into a box.
Here's the deal. That goes into stereotyping, and that goes into these people feeding into this twin flame lie, essentially. And I'm going to call it a lie because the essence of a twin flame says that there's only one person out there that has your exact same genetic blueprint. No. There's no one that has your exact same genetic blueprint. That's why we have different fingerprints. Okay? That's why we might have similar blueprints. We might have soulmates that we finally connect with. and etc. And there are some that we connect with on certain levels. It's kind of like, my sister was asking me, she's about to, get pregnant, with a girl or whatever. And she said, I just wonder if I can love the next one just as much as I love this one. And I said, here's the deal, honey. I was like, you're going to love that one. You're going to love the next one. It's just going to be in a different way. I said, Caitlin, for example, I said, I love you unconditionally just as much as I love my partner. I said, but it's in a different way. I said, I love my children just as much as the other unconditionally, but in different ways. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
like Larry, I love you so much. You're a soulmate of mine, but I love you in a completely different way than I love all my other soulmates.
Right.
Because of your genetic and DNA blueprint. And if we were all the same, if it says we were all created, individually and equal and etc., then the twin flame, this exact same blueprint, it doesn't apply. So therefore, we must go beyond that boundary of searching for this perfect person. And that's one thing that I really, I think twin flames are a great concept to an extent, but I think the twin flame thing really needs to be asserted. And I'm actually glad we stumbled upon this.
Me too. You're echoing.
I'm really,
you're echoing a lot of the same stuff that me and actually Sith really feel, and we've talked about this before on our own shows. That it's really people. You go onto YouTube, right, and you could find pages and pages and pages of people posting twin flame stuff, and it's like you can get caught up in that minutia really easily. But it is about learning to go within and love yourself. And there are several soulmates out there, right? Because at the end of the day, we are one.
Honey, depending on how old your soul is, there are hundreds and thousands of soulmates out there.
Exactly. Most of them you'll never meet on this 3D existence.
I mean, whether it's a man or a woman, like I mean, that's the thing, It's just here's the deal. Nobody has your same soul. They might have a similar genetic makeup, a similar blueprint, what have you. I don't care. But here, when it all comes down to it, only you have that true twin flame essence that can heal you and bring you into meeting a soulmate that suits your needs, or suits you, and and any relationship. And I'm just going to say this right now, a lot of people get caught up in this twin flame thing. They meet their twin flame, and then boom. It's the fan, and they're like, oh, I thought they were my twin flame, or, oh, well, now I have to do twin flame healing. Well, yes, you do have to do twin flame healing, but it's within and of yourself. You see what I'm saying?
Totally.
We can't just see there's just one person out there for us, because essentially we are all one. We're all connected to the whole, and that's how it is. We are all one. Like, I see myself in you. I see myself in a crackhead. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not saying I'm a crackhead, but I'm just saying, we have to have unconditional love, and that goes back to Christ, the true Christos. That goes back to the Magdalene imprint, the Magdalene genetic DNA, etc. And everyone's not the same. I mean, they're equal, they're one, but everyone has their own uniqueness, and no relationship in this world, one day it will get there, right? At this point, is just gonna go be all fucking roses and dandelions.
All lovey-dovey and pink hearts and rainbows and unicorns jumping over them. And and how many times, Lindsay, have you, at least I have heard this throughout my whole life, it's like somebody will ask a parent or another friend or something, they'll be like, okay, they think they're in love, and they'll go, Mom, Dad, or so-and-so, how did you know so-and-so was the one? How did you know it was the one? It's
right.
How can you answer that? How did you know?
Exactly. And you know what? And you know what? And then you have the instances where they're like, I just knew, honey. And 10 years later, boom, they're divorced.
Oh, yeah. How many times have you heard, especially in America, oh, they're the one. And 5 ones down the later, this person's still the one, is another one.
Right, exactly. And another thing I want to say is that, the grass is always greener. People want to say, oh, it's always greener on the other side. Bullshit.
Yes.
Hey listeners, hey viewers, the grass is greener where you water it.
Exactly. I like to tell
I've
people.
been through this with my partner, and I could call it a twin flame energy, because he's probably the closest thing that I've ever had to, I mean, he's complete opposite. All like in his natal chart, he's all earth and fire. I'm all air and water. So we balance each other out. He keeps me grounded, and I lift him up into the clouds. A year ago, I had the option, or felt the option to leave and, do certain things with my life. And I said no. I said, how could I do this? How could I do this to him? Like, I give so much time to so many people across the globe. Why am I even thinking about leaving? Like, why is that thought even crossing my mind? Oh, wow, hang on a second. Maybe I haven't done my part.
Well, when people say the grass is always greener on the other side, or they think that, I always like to tell them or put out the analogy that, yeah, you think that, but when you get there, it's usually brown and wilted. So, I mean, but
Exactly.
it is, yeah, it's where you water it.
And for some people, especially if it's an abusive relationship, yeah, it is going to be greener. You know what I mean? But like I said, it's going to be greener where you water it, and that includes your own soul and then your partner's soul. But to meet the partner that you're calling in, okay, that you wish to meet, you need to get yourself centered, grounded, and love yourself unconditionally so that you can attract someone that loves themselves unconditionally.
It's almost like when you finally get to that point where you do love yourself, right, and you're like actually content about being alone or not in a relationship. So a lot of times that's the time when you start to finally attract something positive like that.
Precisely. I mean, that's when, like, literally when I moved to Wilmington, 4 years ago during the Venus transit, and a month later on July 7th, I met Nick, my partner. And I didn't want to fall in love with anyone. I was like, I'm doing me. I'm good. I was a ghost writer. I was a writer, I'm still a writer, but, with the World Ascension Conference and a lot of things going on, my book's being put on hold, and that's okay. Yet I do want to say that I really, obviously I called him in subconsciously because when I met him, it was like we went on a 3-day long date. He showed me, like, we went on a boat ride the first night we hung out, and he showed me the plankton in the water on Masonboro Island, and it was just like it lit up, like, in the water. He just shuffled his hands around and his feet, and I literally thought I was in the movie Avatar, and I was like, holy shit, wow. No one's ever done this for me, I was always used to being the giver and the etc. And then, about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, or the end of July, I went back, I went into hiding for almost 2 weeks from him, because I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm falling in love. No, I don't want to love anyone. I don't want to get hurt, etc. But he has been the most amazing man. He's been the most amazing person. Like, he grounds me, And I really want to incorporate, as we were talking about, like, being discerning and etc., how important it is to ground. I really think that needs to be covered as well. Like, how important it is to have a grounding aspect in your life.
Oh, essentially, and it can be the one thing missing. I mean, you can have it all together sometimes, and that, if you're not quite grounded, it's still going to look a little shaky, and it is very important.
It's like I've had friends that have abandoned me, I guess, for being, like, too positive, etc. But that's okay, because maybe I wasn't grounded, or maybe they weren't grounded. Either way, it all works out. So for those people who have had best friends and lovers leave them recently, my heart goes out to you. But just remember that you have such a huge mission that their vibration is no longer allowed in your life.
Great point.
I want to reiterate that if you've had anyone leave your life that meant a lot to you, just remember it has nothing to do with you. you know, everything we see is a reflection within and of itself, and that you obviously have a huge mission and you're meant to go on a certain journey alone for a little bit. You know, that's what Ajahn and I spoke about today, about how solitude has really been, you know, we really need to start incorporating solitude within and of our relationships and ourselves. Like, we need to be comfortable with being alone. For example, me and my partner, we hold and contain our own identity. We don't mold and conform to each other. And I think that's very important in relationships. I see so many get lost in this partner's identity, and etc. You know, so don't, or even a best friend's identity. So those of you out there who have lost someone's exited out of your life, just remember, you have a huge purpose, and obviously they're not welcome at this point in your life right now. Not to say they're not worthy, but they're just not welcome. You have a mission to complete.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you're awakening. Like in my case, it cost me a marriage because, you know, she thought I was going crazy, but I couldn't help it.
Right.
I was awakening and had this going on, and, you know, and it hurt and it hurt. And then I had to realize, well, her vibration just wasn't where mine was at or whatnot, or it doesn't mean that I was better than her or she was better than me. It's just that it was a different new time. And you get caught up in a relationship where you're trying to please somebody and please somebody and please somebody and doing what they want to do, just what they want to do. And it's like, no, honey, we'll do just, but that's really not a good thing, because you're letting yourself be silent and get walked over. And really that leads to kind of you becoming irrelevant if you don't recognize your own needs as well.
Exactly, and that's why I honor my partner's needs, and he honors mine. You know, and that's why it works. You know, at first it was difficult because he grew up Lutheran and all this stuff, and he wasn't totally on board. You know, but when our daughter came in, she told me before she came in that she was wanting to come in, and I was like, honey, you can't come in until you're gonna remember things, until you're totally spiritually in tune. Because otherwise, like, you have to help your daddy awaken with your DNA, etc. And I mean, some amazing things have happened since she's came into our life.
Yeah, it's totally true. Everything happens on the right time for the right reason, and you can't force it.
And let me say, for those, because there's a lot of awakened people out there with, you know, spouses, etc., that aren't awakened. You know, I'm not saying jeopardize yourself, but at the same time, if you really feel that intuitively, and that your spouse will awaken, stick with it. You know, keep watering it. It will happen, because, for example, Abraham Hicks, how long did she go through this? Esther Hicks, how long did she go through her husband? Years and years and years she was channeling, you know? But she knew that if she left him, he would never awaken, you know?
Right, but at some point, you know, in some cases,
like,
though,
yeah, exactly, Larry. Like you said, you can't be somebody else's victor. You know, you can't save them. They have to save themselves. So I'm not saying, you know, hang on to some relationship that isn't serving you. You know, there's a fine line, and that goes back with the discernment. You know what I mean?
yeah, totally. Those would be called a relationship, as my friend who just got out of one would say.
Exactly, a relationship. Yeah. Yeah, I was, you know, and that's the thing, you know, either way, they're going to awaken if they're meant to awaken. And I knew that when I left, when I had to leave my ex, you know, I didn't know why. I mean, I knew why, because it was toxic. But yeah, I knew I had to set the bar, not only for my family, but for him. Not set the bar for him, but I just held space, and I've prayed for him ever since, and his new wife, and my children, who stay with them most of the time, because I wasn't going to be the crazy parent that said, these are my children. You know, no, they're not my children. They're children of God, okay? And they need stability, and that was something that he could offer them. And at the time, I couldn't. So, there's a time to be humble and step down and just know that everything's taken care of. Everything's taken care of. Just go with your intuition, go with your gut. There's some out there who must read books, and I recommend studying, etc. I really recommend Krista Risa. I'll spell her name, Krista. What I'll do is, Krista Risa, Kristi, Risa, Raisa. She's just amazing as far as speaking on spiritual maturity. So it's just, that's just so important with this discernment we get into. My thing is, I'm maybe I'm like OCD and I'm just like heavenly. That works for me. Because when I use the word heavenly, it's almost like it creates this protective barrier of heaven around me. Some people don't have to see that. They don't, because they can set their intention in their mind and their hearts, and they know what's going on. But that all goes back to discernment and knowing what you need for the certain time. And knowing which entities you are dealing with, and knowing that, what to discern. If anything
Right.
comes in, and it feels manipulative, or and that's where it goes back to grounding. There's so many tips you can find on the internet for grounding, and like I said in the last interview, I was vegan for 2.5 months, and then I was told I could eat fish, or it was advised to me under free will to eat fish and incorporate fish. And I'm not gonna lie, I ate almost an entire pack of bacon yesterday morning.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, and here's the thing, you bless your food. It's okay, because some people can afford to eat this, but having, my normal weight is like 125, 135, or used to be. But now I'm more like I go back from 135 to 145. I need that weight on me for grounding, not only for my spiritual grounding, yet for my my physical grounding and mental grounding. Because if I didn't have this, and for Gaia too, I'm with all the light codes and DNA upgrades that I'm receiving, how selfish would it be of me to not be grounded and to not feel a little heavier than I'm used to, and just give that back to Gaia. Give all my unconditional love, protection, and all of everything and healing back to Gaia that she's given me, and etc.
Right, I want to go back real quick. You mentioned that your ex with his new wife and everything. Don't you think too that you guys help each other to move on and go to your own paths? He might be where
Yes.
he needs to be now. You are, and it might be like he's where he needs to be at his phase
Precisely.
of this journey.
Precisely. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, for sure. And it was crazy synchronistic how all this happened. Um, I started dating Nick on July 7th, and his wife was born on July 7th. Their anniversary is on our son's birthday, on mine and Jim's son's birthday, on the 21st. And our anniversary, mine and Nick's, is on July 7th, on her birthday. So, it all incorporates. There's certain things that have kind of hurt, and etc. But, I mean, there's things that I've done to hurt him and her and her view, maybe, even though I haven't, I think it's just like me being like absent or under certain situations, which pertains to my work, and the fact that I'm in the process of, getting my license back again. Actually, it was supposed to be done 2 months ago, but we had a glitch in the system called the DMV, So, I mean, I haven't driven for 7 years, and I'm completely fine with that. Like, I'm so grateful for what happened to me. For, I was the one that didn't get caught, or that did get caught, and I needed to get caught because I was on a path of destruction, and for that, I ended up with my grandparents and then had all these experiences and then totally went into my awakening and just following my heart and moving to Wilmington and then meeting Nick. It's been amazing. So people don't be too hard on yourselves. Like there are those out there who might be facing some crime they've committed and they're tuning into this right now. And I just want to say to them, don't worry. Like these things happen for a reason. Like your mistakes, it's not a mistake. It's a stepping stone. It's a lesson. So use that as leverage. That tree's in front of you to climb, not to be in your way.
Yeah, it's amazing where life can take you. I mean, you look back 5 years and then you look forward from there, and it's like,
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So you met this, yeah.
Yeah, Larry, 7 years ago, it would have blew my mind if God or whoever would have told me, hey, Lindsay, this is what you're going to be doing in 7.
Yeah, no kidding. Me too.
I mean, honestly, and I think all the viewers and listeners, they could be questioning, where am I going to be? Where am I going to be? Like, what's going to happen with me? Well, listen, create your own timeline, embrace your timeline, set your destination when you lie down to sleep. Meditation's free. You can be active. You can be an activist via meditation. If you don't have money to buy a car and do this and this or that, you can be active globally via meditation.
Absolutely.
And sleep, yeah. and sleep. It's activating the pineal gland, which contains DMT.
Exactly. We're always going on journeys during our sleep, and meditation is just a matter of, relaxing, doing whatever feels, comfortable to you, but just relax, close your eyes, or do whatever. But you're right, it is free. It's not something that you have to take a class to learn how to do or overthink it so much that you forget even what you're doing.
Precisely. And like I said, I just really want to reiterate the spiritual maturity and discerning these entities that will come to you within the matrix. Like Thomas was speaking of, he had no fear. Everything's fine. Like even if you're going through this thing with your family where they're rejecting you for your views, just don't tell them. Just get on the internet, if you feel like sharing something, whatever. There on Facebook, there are settings where you can adjust to where your family won't see them. Create your online community, because that's all I've had for the past 7 years. That literally, I haven't driven for 7 years, but guess what? Facebook has been the stepping stone, and I actually didn't care what my family thought, and now all of a sudden, I'm getting recognition from my family, and they're super proud of me.
Exactly. Sometimes I think I'm a little too hard on people that may be cautious of what their family thinks, because, I just hit the ground running with this and really was actually learned a big lesson in not trying to, force what I was seeing down people's throats. But yeah, I really just don't care either, because I'm weird, and that's me. But I know a lot of people are cautious of this and that. It's like, the time has really come and gone to be shy per se, but if you really feel like it's in position, adjust your settings on Facebook, do whatever, create a duplicate account. I don't know,
Yeah, a duplicate account, or even let's say you can adjust your settings to where you can exclude certain people from viewing your post. It's really easy, I don't want to see the light workers and the starseeds and people who have this huge truth out there have to feel like they need to be in the background. I mean, if you have to delete your family from your Facebook for a moment, do it.
Yeah, I've known people that have had to do that too.
Because, that's the thing. Like, I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for my online community.
Exactly. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah. And that just goes to show how powerful spirit is. We don't have to have anyone in the physical that's there. We don't, because we are spirit. We are not separate from spirit. We are within spirit.
Brilliantly put. Lindsay, hey, it's been, this has been really great. I gotta run an errand here in a few. Do you have anything else that you wanted to bring up before I have you let everybody know again, what's going on and where they can find you?
Yeah, I mean, they know where they can find me. You can put the links up,
Mm-hmm.
etc. I just want to really just tell everyone I'm here for them. You can find me on Facebook, etc., what have you. Infinite blessings, unconditional love to all of you, all the listeners, all the viewers. I hold this immense space in my heart for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And and again, it's amazing this project that you're working on, the World Ascension Conference, and I'm very, very flattered that you've invited me to be a part of it. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. But real quick, and I'll make this real quick for everybody out there. The best way to find out what I do is go to a certain page on Facebook called Pleiadian Groups and Pages. That page will give you a list of all our YouTube channels, our website, where you can find us on Twitter, the 40 or so, sorry, I dropped my pen, related Pleiadian groups, Arcturian groups, things of that nature, a few Lyran groups. So you can go there, Pleiadian groups and pages. And of course, the website is larrylocken.wix.com/Pleiadian Express Pro. And of course, we do love and appreciate donations. So we do have a donation button on there if you feel that you like this show and it's something that you would like to support. And again, we also have our two YouTube channels. This one, Pleiadian Express Productions, which I call the mothership, and a smaller one called the Pleiadian Light Grid Project, which I do my channelings on there as well as some, kind of humorous stuff, and use it kind of as a testing ground for maybe certain ideas that I have come through. So,
Right, Larry, I just want to interject, and
yeah.
I just want to say that I am honored to have you as the ongoing host for World Ascension Conference starting in August.
Well, thank you. I would say that I'm well, here, let's do this. I'm more honored than you're honored. We can get into an argument about being honored. I'm very honored and beyond flattered, really. I mean, anything that I could really say complimentary towards that would be actually belittling, because it could never describe how, really just how much it feels. I could sob about it and I could just say, oh God, Lindsey, thank you, thank you. But it would never really express really truly in earth words how I feel about it. And with that being said, yeah, again, thank you. And I just wanted to wish much love to everybody out there, all our star peeps, our star broskies and star goddess sisters, much love, and wishing you a namaste. And we're gonna send you off like usual with a big cosmic dating game kiss. Mwah.
Mwah.